And my sweet, salty sister in Christ, Miss Rochelle Burchett.
Welcome back this week to the Salty Sister Radio Show. We are so happy to be. I am so happy to be back.
I am too. I have missed it. I feel like we've been gone for a month.
I know, I do too. And that the last week we did have to play a replay. I had the migraine of my life, I believe, and I praise God that I endured through and got through that. But for me to miss the show, it had to be pretty bad. So let's get back to it. We are studying Detours. We're going to talk a little bit about Joseph tonight, and just this has been so encouraging to me because when you look at others' lives and what they've gone through, how much important that is too. But before we get started, let's start with some of our announcements. And first of all, I want to say thank you to the Shuffle Bean Cafe, formerly known as Miss Ida's Tea Room, from our sweet, sweet sister, Linda Booth. And so here's the thing. They have a home-cooked lunch and dinner. And the local favorite is a 7-ounce hamburger, which we need to go try.
Yes,
but
we didn't try that night.
My favorite, though, the Friday night prime rib is amazing, and I got to partake of that. That was delicious. If you're looking for a place to get a great steak prime rib, go to the Shuffle Bean Cafe in Martin County. And also they have their wonderful reception room available. And the reception room is still named Miss Ida, which the history behind that is that's Miss Linda Booth's mom. And the story that Linda Booth loves bees.
Yeah.
And she loves them because her mother always used to tell her that the bumblebee is aerodynamically, it's a miracle that it can fly because its body is bigger than its wings. And that's why her mother would always say to always believe. God can do anything.
Yes.
So if you're in Martin County or you want to take a special date night and go over and have dinner at the Shuffle Bean Cafe, please do that. It's in Martin County again. And then, of course, make sure that you try to go on Friday night for that amazing prime rib.
And the fish. I had the fish the night I was there, and it was delicious.
Yeah, I love to eat.
I love to eat, too.
Okay, move on.
Moving on. Okay, so every Sunday night we have got the study of Job going on at the 404 Main. That is at 6:30, and that is every Sunday night. 6:30, 404 Main. I'm not sure who's leading that. Is that Tina or Mike?
Tina, Mike, and I think Elizabeth a little bit together.
Yes.
And it's holding on to hope. And I have heard, I had to miss last week, but people have said it's been phenomenal.
Oh, I know. I mean, I have heard so much feedback about this class. They say it's wonderful, wonderful. So this week, because of Valentine's Day being on Tuesday, they're going to do Grief Share at Southside on Monday night. And that's going to be at
6:30.
6:30.
I don't know. I mean, what time is it? Oh my goodness! I think it's at 6:30.
6:30. Okay,
pretty sure.
6:30 Monday night at Southside is the Grief Share. Thursday night, if you miss it on Monday at Southside, you can catch it at Calvary Church of God on Depot Road. That's Thursday at 6:30 as well, and that's the Grief Share. Then on Saturday, it is a one-day event, and this is Holding On to Hope. Is that right?
This
is that the name of that one?
Dealing with the loss of a spouse.
Loss of a spouse.
Yes.
That's what it is. I'm looking right here what Tina had sent me on that.
And it's at the Haven of Rest.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the times. It's so if you have
I'm looking up the time right now.
If you've lost a spouse, it's another thing that aligns with Grief Share, but it's going to be at the Haven of Rest, and I think it's beautiful. First of all, a beautiful venue to have it at, but it is holding on to hope. It's the loss of a spouse.
Yes, and that's going to be at 10 to 1. 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And I tell you, during the grief of someone, I have found it so difficult to come up with the words to say. You don't know what to say. You don't know what to buy. You don't know what to do. But I'm telling you, the Grief Share alone and this one-day event is one of the greatest gifts you could ever give someone that is grieving the loss of someone that's going through something. When you don't know what to do, go with them.
Yes, or invite them to go.
Yes.
Let's go to this Grief Share class together. I'll tell you, while I've not been in active grief now at this moment, but what I learned from it and the hope that I was given from it, just understanding things I've dealt with in the past too.
Yes. And what I love about the Grief Share, what I love about each one of these classes that they are doing together is it is non-denominational.
Yes, yeah.
It's not about any church.
No.
It's so much bigger than just one church. It's all about the church.
It is.
It is. And they're just trying to encourage and help one another in this time. And I think it's awesome.
I do too. Now, I think that is the last of the announcements, right?
Yes,
I think so. Okay. So
if we forgot some, forgive us.
Yes, because it feels like we've been out of this for
I
a long
know
time.
it. Message us and we'll get it next week.
And we thank you again for the sponsor, Shuffle Bean Cafe, for tonight's show. I will say this, if you would like to sponsor 1 week or 2 weeks or whatever, we can place a link for you to be able to do that. We have appreciated so much
Yes,
of the
everyone.
people, outpouring love that people have given us. We still like quite a bit to cover the year, but wow, just so thoughtful.
Won't
and so
God do it, though?
Amazing.
He
I'm
will.
telling you, every single time.
He always does.
So as we're getting back to this detour, wow, I mean, I just been to Alabama for a week and traveling, and on the way back, we actually, you know how the GPS will just take you somewhere, and we're like, but this does not look familiar to us. I don't think this is not the way we came. This is not the way we came. But we worked out just fine. And the girl that was driving the car, Jess, she said, well, as long as I can still see 2 yellow lines on the road, I know that we're okay, because we were really going into the, to the trenches here. But we ended up exactly where we were going. We'd just taken a different route. And sometimes in life, I think things come up abruptly.
Yes.
And we don't know what to do.
Right.
But I'm thinking about what we've studied so much, especially with the life of Joseph, to really embrace the detour and to be able to keep your eyes peeled wide open to see all that God has to show us.
All that He's doing. All the many ways that throughout this detour that He is taking care of us and constantly moving us toward our destinies.
Yes.
If we don't give up. If we don't give up and quit. You cannot quit.
And one of the words that I'm going to, of course, give the definition to tonight, but one of the things that talked about was the word absorb, and I always think about a sponge.
Yes.
Whatever you let soak in a sponge, when you squeeze it, that's what's going to come out, no matter what. You can't squeeze up water and pour out milk. But the word absorb means this: take in or soak up energy or a liquid or other substance by chemical or physical action. Take up the attention of or interest greatly. And I think that word is such a key word for us, because it says take in or soak up. And if we could put that word, the word of God there.
Yes.
Or just soak up Him.
Yes.
Can you imagine if when these detours happen, we're going to get squeezed a little. And what comes out, and I think about this so much, it's like there is always an audience when we are going through the most traumatic times of our lives or the most difficult times of our life, or we're on a detour. People are going to watch how we respond or react. And to be able to be squeezed and for Jesus to pour out and His word to pour out and His promises to pour out and to see His love pour out of us, that is, our gift to God, to be that ambassador, to let those things leak out for other people to be nourished from.
Exactly. And they can grow from that strength, our strength.
Yes.
And that's why it says, we've got to encourage one another. We've got to share. I was trying to say Worcestershire.
No. Okay.
We've got to share those personal pit experiences. How that God, in our deepest, darkest moments, in our deepest, darkest pits, how God just swept in and just did the unthinkable.
Yes.
Only God. And that's what we need to let people see, and that we do come through the pit. It's not a permanent pit. No. It's just a pit stop.
And we don't need to make it our home.
Yes.
But, thinking about what you said, and I asked the question, what are you full of tonight?
Yeah.
What are you obsessing about? What are you freaking out about? And thinking about, what I think you've said this before, we have to take whatever that is, take it off the throne and take Jesus back where He belongs.
That's right.
Because what has your attention has you. What you're obsessing about has you. Yeah. And if we could be obsessing about God and our relationship and those intimacy, I think about sidetracking kids, for example, to get their attention off something. We can, while we're doing something, maybe getting a splinter out of a finger, we're doing things to cause them to think about something else.
Right.
And if we could sidetrack our minds and focus on God and not that situation, and let Him work out all the details.
Oh, absolutely. Because the more we focus on that stuff, the bigger it gets.
Yeah, and thinking about Joseph, I know, there's so much, as we've learned already, the dysfunction. I don't know a functional family, because it may be Facebook functional.
Right. But that fake book, you mean?
Yeah, the fake book, yeah, and maybe that. But there is so much to learn from, his father Joseph was his favorite, which that's dysfunction and stuff. And all that we read about all the other family members, and then thinking about he shouldn't have probably shared his dream with everybody, right? And then comes
Exactly.
spouting that coat in front of everyone. I mean, there was a lot of, but he was
And I think
young.
that-
He was young,
He
right?
was immature.
And sometimes it's good to be quiet about our dreams or those kinds of things too, right?
My mom always says, Cassie, please listen more, talk less.
Yeah, that's what we need to do. And it is amazing
It is.
when you practice the listening or hearing people what's really going on in a situation. But one of the things that that is in the study we talked about is that the key is found in your intimacy with the Lord. The key to get out of the pit is this becoming so intimate with God.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about one of the words that's repeated over and over in the book of Genesis is that it says, and God was with him.
Yes.
And God was with him. I mean, he was forgotten. There's so many things that he was dealing with that, and I think we all feel like that somewhat. Is this pit ever going to be over? This season ever going to finish?
Yes. Is it ever going to end? This chapter, God, when can we move on to the next chapter?
Like this, the weather's going to be 70 this week. Like, right? So it's been warm.
And we may have snow tonight.
Who knows, right?
Who knows?
But thinking about sustaining ourselves, and the only way we can sustain ourselves is through him.
Exactly.
I think if we could ever get to that, I mean, the older I'm getting, the more I'm understanding that better.
Mm-hmm.
But it's about soaking up to him too. And Genesis 39, 2 through 6, I'm just going to skim through here, but it says the Lord was with Joseph, so he became a successful man. And if you just break that down, the Lord was with him, so he became.
Yes.
It's about having that priority first, God being with us. And he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. Now his master saw that the Lord was with him. And I love this here because the master saw that the Lord was with him and how the Lord caused all that he did to prosper in his hands. Everybody's watching us. Everybody's watching you to see what we're doing and to have the blessing of God upon our hands, blessing what our hands touch and the prospering that God does through all of that. It's important because even the master saw the Lord.
Yeah. And when the Lord is with you and you are with the Lord, people know there's something different. There's something different when we should be falling apart.
Yeah.
Literally.
Spiritual duct tape.
That's it.
Together every single time.
That's exactly right. It's really all just coming together. And we need to trust. We need to trust. We say that every single week, but that is it. And just because we have the favor of God doesn't exclude us from challenges. It's not going to exclude us from the detours or from pits, but favor will keep us from being defeated.
Yes.
If we keep our eyes on him,
if
we keep them vertical, don't focus on the detour.
No.
Do not focus on how hard it is, how dry it is, what we don't have. Focus on what we do have. When we wake up every morning, if we just look in the mirror of God and just say, girl, you have got the favor of God on you today.
Yes.
Remind yourself and remind
mental
hell.
Coaching, mental coaching, spiritual mental coaching.
Yes, David encouraged himself.
That's what he
We've
said.
got to learn to do that. Tell yourself, I have the favor of the Almighty God, the creator of the world.
Yes.
I've got his favor on me. I'm a daughter of him. Tell that. Speak that into the atmosphere.
And over your life. Because, you're the only person, sometimes David, they wanted to kill David.
Yeah.
And he said that he had to encourage himself in the Lord. Sometimes it is going to be our responsibility to do that too. On a daily basis, we have got to. The enemy is so rampant right now to the minds with anxiety and depression and everything that surrounds us that we have got to learn to be able to coach ourselves. The scripture says that the Lord caused all that he did to prosper in his hands. So he found favor and he became his personal servant and made him overseer over his house. And all that he owned, he put in his charge. And it came about that from that time, he made him overseer in the house and over all that he owned. And the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house on the account of Joseph.
Yes.
So imagine about where we are, the places that we are in life, how that the Lord lets things prosper because we are a part of that.
Yes, because we have got the favor of God on us and we are in that with them.
Yes.
And it blesses the whole thing.
So when you walk in with that authority, thinking about that, because what we can bring to our places of work or to our home or to our church or to all those places, it says, thus the Lord's blessing was upon all that he owned in the house and in the field. So he left everything he owned in Joseph's charge. And with him there, he did not concern himself with anything except the food which he ate. I mean, being able to lay over that responsibility, to delegate that because of how the Lord's hand was on him. This poor boy was just taken across the world and put into a pit, and his resume had nothing on it that would allow him to become a leader.
You know, I read in a commentary and I thought this was amazing. You're talking about a boy that was a slave that was thrown in the pit into the prison. He pulled him directly out of the prison into
Yeah.
this meeting. He became all of that probably within an hour because, you know, that meeting he only probably took him 30 minutes to interpret a dream.
Yeah.
You just think of how quick the favor of God turned everything around for Joseph just that quick.
And that's the thing, we have to look for it and expect it.
Yes.
We can't wallow around. I always think about this pit, and I thought years ago when I taught on this, that I could just see this big dirt pit that I was in, and I could just feel like, okay, I've been here long enough. I'm going to put my sofa in here. I'm going to put some pictures on the wall, because I had decided I was just going to be comfortable in the pit.
Oh gosh, don't camp out there.
No, that's the thing.
No, don't
and we've
camp
got
out.
to learn that it is a temporary thing, that
Yes.
whatever you're going through right now is not going to last forever.
No, it's got an expiration date. It's going to end. I wrote down a little quote that I had seen that says, "A touch of favor is worth a lifetime of labor." We can work and we can work and we can do and do and do. But when we have the favor of God, He can do the impossible in just a second. He can take 13 years of a pit, and He can take you from that pit, that prison, to the prime minister of the whole Egypt.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about that.
To the palace.
He can.
It says God sovereignly guided his every step. But see, here's the thing. The key to that is that Joseph allowed him to do that.
Because Joseph was with him as well.
Exactly. Using the difficult detour. Now, I want you to think about whatever you're dealing with right now, this difficulty in your life that you're dealing with. I want you to think about this. It says the difficult detour to ultimately get Joseph in a position where he would one day rise to prominence. Not only that, but once Joseph arrived in Egypt, God was able to give Joseph favor in his position as a slave. Even later in prison, God was able to cause Joseph's hand to prosper and let other people give Joseph authority. You know, we do not read of Joseph complaining, whining, or doubting what God had told him despite his dire situation. So those dire situations and all these detours, I want you to think about, you are here. God was building him, teaching him, you know, it's just like going to training to learn to do a job. God put him in these positions because he had a place for him. The providence of God has that place planned for us for a purpose.
That's right.
But we refuse so much to be shaped because we don't want to do it. It's easier to exhaust ourselves or to be out of sight, out of mind with things.
And that's why it takes us so long. And that's why we circle around the same mountains, the same issues, the same things that we, belly grub over every single day, because we refuse. We want to camp out.
Yeah.
We want to have pity parties. We want to play the victim mentality.
I'm guilty too. I mean, I'm just saying.
I've had my pity party as well. But God does not intend for us to stay there. This is a pit stop. We're going somewhere.
Yeah.
He's taking us somewhere to a greater destiny for the purpose He created us for. For He knows the plans that He has for us.
Yes.
And we have got to learn to trust
His plan
Him.
is best. His
Trust
plan
Him.
is best. Yes, His plan is best.
No matter how hard it gets and no matter how bad it seems, we have to know that God is for us. He is for us. He's using every single thing to move us forward.
He is. And I think the idea, you said this that came to my mind, the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over and expect a different result.
Yeah.
Why do we keep going around the mountain?
Why don't we keep doing it?
See, I feel like, as we had in Bible study last month, that praying that hard prayer, Lord, what's it going to take to get me that intimate with you? There is a part of fear of, I don't want to hurt. I don't want to have loss. I don't want to have these things.
Yeah. It's a scary prayer.
It is.
It's a very scary prayer.
But if you know that God, there's no fear in God like that. There's a godly fear of reverence to love Him.
Right.
But God does not give us the spirit of fear.
Yeah.
And the enemy does not want us to get to that place to where, God, whatever it takes, I just want you.
Yes.
And to be just running,
nothing else.
Running for that, releasing all the, whatever the weights it is that's holding us back. It takes us also to Genesis 39. And you really need to go read the chapter of Genesis 39. 21 through 23 says, But the Lord was with Joseph and extended him kindness to him and gave him favor in the sight of the chief jailer. So he's in jail.
Yeah.
And he's getting favor in jail. The chief jailer committed to Joseph's charge all the prisoners who were in the jail, so that whatever was done there, he was responsible for it. The chief jailer did not supervise anything under Joseph's charge because the Lord was with him, and whatever he did, the Lord made to prosper, even in prison.
Yeah.
even in jail, that's what I'm trying to say. Wherever you're finding yourself right now, if you allow God to lead,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter. So, he says, Tyler and I used to talk about this all the time. One of the quotes that I would send him when he was away that was like, let him throw me to the wolves, I'll come back leading the pack.
Yes.
And every time the enemy tries to throw us to the wolves,
Yes.
if we allow God to direct us and lead
That's
us,
right.
we're going to come back leading the pack just
Yes.
like Joseph.
That's right. What they meant for evil, God will turn for good. It doesn't matter the pit. And I thought about Daniel when I was
Yes.
doing this study. I thought about Daniel
Yes.
and what a favor of God that Daniel had on him. I mean, he was in the lion's den, but it was a setup. It was literally a setup for God's favor to
Not
be
a
witnessed.
setback. Yes,
It was not a
setback.
setback. It was a setup. So we have to, and that's the thing I've told myself all week. Every setback that we encounter, why don't we just say, you know what, this is a setup for God to do something great.
Be excited.
God's going to
Yes.
turn it around.
Lord,
God's going to do
yes.
it. And stop thinking so negatively all the time. Why me? Why me? Why am I here? Why not? Why
Yes.
not? God's doing something great. Trust the journey.
Get
Trust
out of
the
his way
detour.
sometimes.
That's
Yeah.
right. Let go and let God.
I love this. It says Joseph did not have the details of his destiny, and while we don't either.
We don't.
But his obedience and his detours and his aim for excellence and all he did gave him the opportunity to learn skills he would use later as a ruler. Right now, you may think everything that you're learning, everything that you're going through is unnecessary. Okay, talking about algebra. I've never, ever used it again
Never.
in my life, right?
No.
So, but here's the thing. I don't know that I ever will. That may be the only thing that I will never use that I had to learn. Right?
Algebra.
Didn't learn it well. But thinking about everything that you're going through right now, it's for something that's going to come in the future.
Yes.
And it feels so unnecessary to you. And why do I even have to do this? Why am I experiencing this? Because God has a plan.
Right.
And then it says that he acquired the experience in leadership, management, handling staff, dealing with problems, and much more. God was equipping him for a mighty leadership position that was going to save a nation.
Absolutely.
What is God preparing you to say? What is God preparing to do with your life if you will let him? And I don't have it with me, but there is a song called "Let Me Dream for You," and the words talk about how that, yeah, David, you're going to be a shepherd boy and all that, but let me dream for you. Let me take you further than you ever can go. Let me dream for you. And if we ever allowed God to fulfill that purpose, when he was creating you and me, he said, Cassie, I'm packing Cassie full of all this so that she can be here.
Yeah.
This is the purpose I have for her. I need her to be her purpose.
Right.
God needs all of us to do our purpose.
Yeah.
And knowing that he's packed us like that acorn.
Yes.
Packed,
Full.
so full that it's already inside of us. It needs to just be opened and broke apart.
That's right. Cracked open.
Yeah.
Cracked open.
But detours produce experience, right? Obedience is the greatest form of excellence that we can give God.
It is. It really is. I wrote in one of my notes too, the beginning of a season versus the end of a season.
Oh, yeah.
And I was thinking about, because my kids are athletes, they all play sports, conditioning.
Yeah.
We have to condition. And that is sometimes what the detour and the pit is about. It's conditioning. Because when you see the team at the beginning of the season, they're not very good. They're not very good. It takes time. The detour is a conditioning. When God sends us on these detours, he's doing something. He's doing something great. And we've got to trust that. We've got to stay the course.
It's like the old Karate Kid movie, wax on, wax off. He had no idea.
Why did he have to do that?
But those movements that he was making was for a specific purpose in his life. And if we could ever think about that moment in life when we're saying wax on, wax off, God, I don't get
Why
this.
do I have to hit this many balls every single day? Because when it comes game time, you want to be able to truly hit the ball and do it justice.
Yeah, that's the thing.
It's about conditioning. It's about finishing well. And at the end of the season, there's such a difference in those players from the beginning when they first started. Because you can see that, they've come through that whole season. God doesn't do this because he's mad at us.
No.
God doesn't put us in these pits and these detours because he wants to hurt us, punish us. He loves us. We're his children. He is trying to move us to the destiny, to the
Yes.
purpose.
And sometimes I'd written this years ago and I found this, but sometimes we think that we're in and I'm going to see if I can do air quotes on the air here. I don't know if you can be able to see it, but the pit sometimes is a pitiful situation. We think we're in a pitiful situation. That begins with pit. And I thought about the pit I'm in is full of opportunities. So we could change that word pitiful to say the pit I'm in is full of opportunities. There's so many opportunities inside the pit, but we can't get our eyes off the circumstances.
Off ourselves.
Exactly.
Off ourselves is exactly what it is.
There was so much prospering in the pit that happened with Joseph. And when you think about, it says this in the book too, training for greater things always takes place in lesser things. Be faithful and responsible and content where you are now. That is one of the major secrets to God taking you further and giving you more. And God is not ready to give you your destiny until you can handle where you are now. So if we're throwing all these temper tantrums, complaining, remain, praise
That's
and be
it.
raised. It's a whole thing about what our attitude in the pit makes all the difference. How many times was he in the pit? He kept going back. I mean, it's like, am I not learning my lesson? But every time he learned a different skill.
That's right.
Every time he was given favor, he was given charge over. And I love, of course, I know I'm jumping way ahead, but Genesis 50:20, when his brothers were there, and he says, no, what the enemy meant for evil, God intended for good. All that I went through. Yeah. I can be bitter. Yeah. But it made me better.
That's right. That's right. And that's what you do. You've got to turn it around. You've got to turn those situations around and say, God's working this for my good. I don't see it. Even though I don't see it. Waymaker, that song. Listen to that song tonight and just believe that. I don't see it. I don't know how it's going to work out, but it's going to, because he is the way maker.
Yes. And the thing I think you said it best is if we could ever get, well, what am I going to get out of this?
Yeah.
See, Joseph never asked that, but and Joseph didn't get per se anything, but it's what he was able to give other people.
That's right.
That was the whole purpose of all. But just thinking about all that I endured, but being able to stand there and know that you had the power to be able to save a nation because of what God gave you, and thinking about what God is trying to condition you for, to train you for, the race He needs you to run, the things that He needs you to do, to accomplish for another purpose.
He sees where we're going to be. He knows the end from beginning. He sees where we're going to be next month, next week, next year. He sees. This is all training. So whatever you're going through, know that it is working a far greater thing.
It is.
Just trust that. Trust that God is working a far greater thing. Training for greater things always takes place in the lesser things. And what it can take us 1,000 years to do, God can do it in one day. He can do it in 1 hour, 1 second. And I'll tell you what, you cannot keep a favored man or woman of God down. And we need to remember that. God, we are favored. We are favored by the Most High God, by the Creator of the world. And we need to remind ourselves that daily. God is for us, not against us.
And going back to the very beginning of this lesson is the sponge. Asking yourself, taking into what are you full of right now? The world is squeezing the fire out of you. What is coming out? And I think about when you think about that sponge, I would have brought it here if I don't want all this technical stuff, but squeezing that out to hear that water pour out of that, to what other people can drink up. What is coming out of us is going to be nurtured.
Us women can relate to childbirth. We've said it so many times. I mean, we carried that thing for 9 months, and it comes the birthing time. It's hard.
It is.
It's hard. But if it's just one more push, just give it one more push. If you're ready to give up, if you're ready to quit tonight, if you've said, I quit, I'm done, just turn around, look at yourself, and say, just one more push.
One more push.
One more push. And remind yourself that you are favored tonight. And if God be for you, there's no one that can be against you.
No. And, realizing.
And He is for you.
Getting ourselves off ourselves.
That's it.
Focusing, God, what do you need me to do today? Lord, what, where do you want my hands and feet to go? What do you need my mouth to say? Who can I encourage? What can I do, Lord? Who can I lift up? Who can I pick up?
Who might be in the pit with me right now that I can help us move forward and get out? Our pastor said something today he said many things that was great, but I wrote this down and I loved it. It says, God's purpose never leaves us. We leave the purpose.
That's true. We get sidetracked. We change the
purpose.
Channel. And that's a wrap. So thank you so much. I hope that you're encouraged after tonight and that you will just keep pushing forward. And the pit is a pit stop. And think about your pitiful situation as a pit full of opportunities. And until next week, stay salty.